Hey folks, welcome to the What the Futures podcast, where we break down complex market trends into simple, actionable advice. It's your quick guide to better farming decisions. Hey folks, welcome to episode number 38 of the What the Futures podcast, recorded in the UPL STUDIO. What the Futures podcast is your weekly dose of clarity in the complex world of crop marketing. We focus on crop marketing. We focus on farm business in Western Canada. Tell your friends. Here we go. Episode number 38. Of course, my name's Ryan Denis. I'm your host. I've spent my career working in agriculture across the prairies, based out of Alberta now, but the family farm is north of Saskatoon, or just south of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And I spent my career as a grain buyer, grain marketing coach, advisor, worked with, hundreds of farmers across the prairies, helping them with their crop marketing decisions, and even led a team of advisors as well. Started the What the Futures podcast last November, and it's been a heck of a time. So thanks for tuning in. This episode, we've got Chuck Penner with Leftfield Commodities. Chuck and I, we go the distance. This episode is about the 2024, kicking off the crop marketing season or year. This is the new crop year. You're listening to this on August 2nd or 3rd, and we are now in the new crop year. All right, so welcome. Happy New Year. And so Chuck and I talk about everything. We talk about canola, peas, mustard, lentils. We cover it all because there's a lot of important things here that you need to tune into and be alert on. I also have a strategy, a new crop strategy that I want you to hear through and to consider, okay? Because we do have tough times ahead. My message is not changing. We have tough times ahead for the next 60 days, up to 60 days. What changes that is if yields fall below expectations across the prairies. Once that, or if that starts to happen, then that rally comes in a little bit faster. But hold on, sit tight. We still have the U.S., big crop coming in the U.S. That could really stall things out for quite some time until we get further into 2025. So let's talk about a strategy that you can implement right now to help you navigate your cash flow needs here this fall. Hit that subscribe button, folks. I post weekly videos every Friday. Of course, double trouble this week. What a poser here. I've got my Wednesday episode playing behind me. But we post weekly. Stay up to date by subscribing on the YouTube channel. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform as well. And of course, you can go to the website, whatthefuturespodcast.ca, and sign up for the newsletter. I just email out episode details once a week. That's about it right now. Unless you guys want more emails from me. Yeah, maybe some more crop marketing stuff. Anyway, you can let me know. All right, folks, let's hear from show sponsor John Deere. I was at Ag in Motion. I'm playing the clips that I recorded there. And this one, we've got Kyle, and he is with Precision Upgrades from John Deere. If you can just imagine taking new technology from John Deere and putting it on the equipment that you already own. You can check out those details at johndeere.ca. But let's go to Kyle and get the update from Ag in Motion. All right, folks, you got Ryan here with What the Futures. I am at the John Deere booth hanging out with Kyle. We're going to talk about precision agriculture. Is that what we're talking about? Precision upgrades and marketing. So let's start with, what is that, Kyle? What's your role here, John Deere? What do you do?
Yeah, so I lead our go-to-market activities for the precision upgrades portfolio. So it's all about getting the latest and greatest technology onto existing machines on the farm. So today we're sitting here behind the sprayer, and we can talk all about the portfolio that we have from precision upgrades to bring the latest technology to the machines that customers already own.
Okay, so are we talking about any machine they own, or there's green machine?
It's today it's green machines that they own, and then we have compatibility that goes back to 2008 on sprayers specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
Depending on the technology that you're looking for, the compatibility can be found on Deere.com, but we have a variety of options of technologies that we've brought through machine forms on new machines that we're now retrofitting onto existing machines that maybe you could have never got that technology from the factory, but now we can put it on after the fact.
Okay, so like if I had let's say I had like a 4720 or something like that on the farm.
Yep.
Is that what we're talking about here?
Not quite 4720s, but 4730s, 4830s would be those
close
machines.
4730.
We can put individual nozzle control pro on those machines, so giving customers the ability to run, if we're in 20-inch machine, 20-inch sections instead of maybe traditional CAD 9 sections across the field. So you're really putting the product where you want it.
Yep.
Saving money in the application because you're not over applying or under applying. You also get curb compensation, so as that journey in the field, you're going to put the product exactly where you need it to do the job that you're doing. Ultimately, the customer.
So you can take something that you already have, within reason, on the farm, and basically take some of this new technology and implement it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have two different nozzle technologies. There's individual nozzle control pro that I just mentioned, goes all the way back to 4730, 4830 sprayers.
Yep.
We also have Exact Apply. So a lot of customers are familiar with Exact Apply on new machines.
Yep.
But we can retrofit that technology back to 2014 and newer. R-Series sprayers, and then we have
here's
two. So our latest boom leveling system. There's also a product called pressure recirculation and product reclaim. So that's the ability to pressurize the boom system before you get into the field to spray. And then when you're done spraying, you can reclaim up to 30 gallons of product back into the tank. That's traditional spray that got somewhere, right? Yep. So that is the sprayer portfolio.
So is there anything, I know you got a wide portfolio, but is there anything for you that really stands out that gets you the most excited when you look at some of these upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, we're not standing here today looking at it, but we do have it at the booth, is our Accurate stainless meters for air seeding. So we just got into the air seeding market here with the launch of the new air carts, Commodity Classic. And so that Accurate stainless meter that we brought on those new carts is actually available to retrofit on 2017 and newer C650 and C850 carts. So you get all of the same benefits that you get with the new cart, but you have the ability to bring that to your existing cart that you have on the farm.
Awesome. Okay, so you've got nice display here, lots of action going on at the John Deere booth. Is this something that John Deere, is this like a new concept at John Deere to have this division and to focus on these offerings, or is this something that's been brewing in the background for a long time and we're just taking notice here?
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily new, but we have changed our focus and our emphasis on this business over the last couple of years. We used to be called Performance Upgrades. We've changed the name to Precision Upgrades, and we're focusing primarily on these technologies that bring customers in and up the technology pyramid, as we call it. So from basic precision technology all the way up to Cincinnati coffee. So we're using the Precision Upgrades portfolio to bring more and more customers into the technology ecosystem within Deere and get them ready for what's next. And it no longer has to depend on where you are in the trade cycle to get that technology. You have the ability to get it in bits and pieces as you own a machine and a new technology comes out. Where we've changed the way that we've decided to some of this technology to market. Sometimes you'll see new technologies come to market through Precision Upgrades first before you factory install. So it's not a business, but the emphasis is absolutely changed in how we're thinking about the upgrades and business.
I appreciate that. Okay. Well, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for joining the show. And have a great rest of your week here, Dagmar.
Absolutely. You do the same. Thank you.
Alrighty, folks. Housekeeping this week, keeping it pretty light. I just don't see a whole bunch of things that we need to tackle right now. I know everyone's asking for these cool shirts. Trying to figure out how to get more shirts out there and to you, because the feedback's been phenomenal on the shirts there. Of course, I appreciate seeing the pictures on social media. If you have one of these shirts, take a picture, put it on social media, even if during harvest or whatever, tag us in it. Certainly would appreciate that. So for housekeeping, my question for you, and I need your feedback on this one as well, but should What the Futures host community events across the prairies this winter? Should we hit the road into your community. Maybe bring in some of our speakers that participate on the episodes. Maybe bring in some crop marketing experts to help you out. Let me know if we should do that, if we should plan that. And if you want to put your hand up and say, hey, Ryan, come to our community. Let's get a meeting set on the calendar this winter. Let me know. Ryan at whatthefuturespodcast.ca. All right. Positive moments this week. I've got some family stuff. I've got something that happened in our neighborhood here. And then I also was able to go and have some fun this week with Pioneer Seeds. So number one, Finley, our son, he's 19 months old now, but his vocabulary is he's repeating everything. He's trying all these big words. It's just phenomenal to see. And so we're having a lot of fun with language, and he's also coloring now, which is cool. So it's nice. It's just really, fulfilling to see your kids, as they learn and grow. I don't know. I just really, really appreciate it. And it's great to see. So we spent, a couple of days here in Saskatchewan, last week. And Finn, he got to go, jump on the tractor with his Pepe. And so, I have a couple little John Deere tractors at our place as well. And, every day he's, pointing out the window, or we go outside and it's brum, 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 I want to go for a tractor ride. So Sunday morning, get up, and he wants to go for a tractor ride. I'm like, all right, buddy, let's go. Let's fire it up. And we live in a subdivision with acreages. Let's just do the loop here, and we'll do our tractor ride. And so we come out of our driveway and we look right, and we're at the end of the subdivision in a little cul-de-sac. There's like 6 properties around the cul-de-sac. And so we don't get a lot of traffic. It's just, Amazon and the neighbors, right? And I see in the middle of the cul-de-sac, there's a green patch, the ditch, and there's some trees in there, and it's a little bit overgrown. And I just see something like shining, and I'm like, there's a vehicle at the bottom of that ditch. So let's go check it out. So Finley and I take a right, head over there, and it's a minivan. It's a minivan with BC plates. It looks like it's had better days. And, we're out there, we stop the tractor and we're looking at it. Is there anybody around? Is anybody in trouble? And I don't see anybody. And then, of course, the neighbors see us out there and they notice, hey, what's going on? So they start coming out. Anyways, we decide to just phone the non-emergency line because we're thinking, this thing's probably stolen and someone, is enjoying their vacation at West Edmonton Mall and woke up this morning and their van was gone, right? So we thought, well, let's phone it in. So we call it in and they say, you know what? It's actually not stolen. I'm like, okay, well, maybe a neighbor has someone visiting and, let's see if we need to hook up to this thing. And it's in there deep, folks. But we would have tried. We would have hooked up and gave it a tug. Anyways, nope, none of the neighbors, nobody knows what's going on. And then someone says, well, at midnight last night, I heard something and, just thought it was the teenagers around or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I know. Okay, obviously this must be it. And so, all right, the non-emergency, the cops, the RCMP say, we'll look into this and we'll find the owner and get back to you. All right. Well, later on in the day, at like 3:00 in the afternoon, the RCMP are in front of our place on the neighboring house, arresting a gentleman who was wearing about half his clothes. It turns out that this gentleman was having a bit of a rough night, took something that made him very sleepy, and he was looking for a place to sleep, and ended up hitting the ditch and was in our area. Now the RCMP told us, you guys have kids here. Don't go play in that van. We've cleaned out all the drugs as much as we can, but there's still some in there. So don't go play in the van. So we're like, okay, interesting. We're definitely not going to go play in the van. But it turns out this guy somehow ends up in the ditch. He's just looking for a place to sleep it off. And he hears the neighbor's dogs, or this is what he says, takes off running, paranoid. So he throws his keys and his wallet somewhere in the ditch, and he's running past our place and past our neighbors. So there's a bunch of pastures behind us. And apparently they found him in some little cabin back there. And anyway, they got him reacquainted with his vehicle and stuff. I'm going to turn this to a positive moment shortly, I promise you. So anyways, the next day, there's a gentleman walking through our properties and through our trees, looking for something in this red car. I'm like, what is happening? So the neighbors, we all think, someone went and approached them, and it was the guy that hit the ditch. He was trying to find his keys and his wallet, and the RCMP were basically giving him the day to find his stuff, phone AMA, and get towed out. And we're sitting here like, but you said there was drugs in there, man. Like, what is happening? Anyways, this guy wandered our neighborhood for the day looking for his stuff. And I just had never seen anything like that before. So my positive moment here is that we had an individual in our neighborhood hit the ditch, do all this stuff, and he didn't come and bother us and cause us grief at our place. So it was like a near miss moment. It had me thinking, okay, I better double check every night, make sure everything's locked up nice and snug, and make sure things are good. Because, stuff happens. We don't live that far off Highway 16, and this guy ended up in our neighborhood. And whatever the story is, it is what it is. But thankfully, he didn't come and bother us and try to live in our camper, which was unlocked, or go hang out. He could have ended up in the podcast studio here, but he could have recorded an episode. No, just kidding. All right. Okay, my final positive moment. Pioneer Seeds, Jacob and Becky Boychuk. They're just phenomenal Pioneer Seed reps. They host a big barbecue every year. I got to attend that barbecue. Pour some beers from Blind Man Brewing, had a couple of kegs out there, meet some growers, and actually do a little presentation as well. So I appreciate the invite, Jacob and Becky, and obviously always a good time over at your summer barbecue. All right, now let's move along here to what's cool in crop marketing this week. And it is double episode week, so I'm not that I'm struggling here to find something that's cool, but the one thing, Mike Lee, who is our UK-based agronomist friend, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to Mike's stuff, because he is boots on the ground right now in Russia. His journey to get into Moscow, I need to get him on the show here in the next couple of weeks, because it took them 30 some hours to travel, and it sounds like it was exciting. So I'm very curious to see. But Mike is boots on the ground. It's raining right now, so they're not doing any yield estimates as of recording this. But he's out there. He is the guy when it comes to Russian production, and we'll see what he has to tell us here over the next couple of days. So that's pretty cool that he made it in there to get us some good information. The other thing that's cool in crop marketing is, there's this theme of light at the end of the tunnel, from a crop pricing perspective. I still think there's dark days ahead for the next 60 days, but there's this quiet optimism brewing into 2025. And I'm not going to say that you actually don't sit here and lock the bins up and just wait. That's not what you do at all. But when you look at the years that we've had, the transition years, this 2024 was definitely a transition year. You look at 2014, I've talked about this on the podcast as well. You have a transition year in 2014, and that leads to fairly sideways markets from 2015 to 2019. So the declines that we've had of 25% and 15% and all these big drops, they're not over yet. They're still coming, right, for the next 60 days. But there's a quiet optimism starting to brew here that we have finally found and are getting closer to maybe sideways type patterns that present, little rallies and selling opportunities. Like it's just starting to brew in the background. And, there's still a lot of work that you need to do right now. And we're going to talk about a strategy here in a second, but there's some of these crops, flax being one of them, as Chuck's going to mention here in a moment. Maybe there's something on the mustard side that can be a little bit optimistic. But canola as well. We talk about canola there into 2025. again, folks, it's going to get worse before it gets better, but we just seem to be entering that, seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. Not a light that presents a big bull market though, but just more stability and not those big drops of 20%. So maybe that's a weird way to say that there's some optimism, but that's what we're kind of looking at here. Okay, now let's talk about a strategy, and then let's go over to Chuck. Now, this is something for you that we're still, this episode comes out to you in early August, the new crop year, and everybody needs to figure out, and I asked you in the last episode to figure out your cash flow needs, right? And so the strategy here is not to forget about crop marketing, get to harvest time, harvest the crop, and then figure out how to sell it and generate cash. You can still be proactive here in generating your cash flow. And especially on wheat and canola or anything with the futures market. The U.S. crops are big. That cloud will hang over us for a long while. Our markets can separate from that a little bit at times. They've shown the capabilities to do that. But what I want to highlight here is, let's say you're a farm and you are short on contracts. You don't have enough sold. You feel undersold. You know that you're going to have to generate cash between now and Christmas. You're going to have to sell something else. And, maybe you're in a position here where you've got some hard work to do and you've got some contracting to do and you need to get more grain sold. Maybe this is the position you're in. Because some of you will listen to this and say, oh, well, I'm just going to throw it in the bins, lock them up, and revisit them next spring. And that's just not reality for most, right? It is for some, but not for most. So what I want to tell you here is that you don't have to wait until you harvest, and you don't have to wait to see the harvest lows before taking action. And, when I look back at 2014, for example, so the canola market, it went in 2014 from August 1st to September 1st, we lost another $1 a bushel. Every year is different, but 2014 patterns are following quite closely. Okay. So we lose $1 a bushel. And then from there, we hit $400 like September, 22nd or something like that, later part of September. And then we rally from 400 to 475. Okay. But imagine if you were a grower in 2014 and on August, in the early part of August, you said, well, I'm going to sell that 450 or 440 level, whatever it was, give or take a few bucks there. I'm actually going to sell that. And, I'm going to let the market low happen. And later in September, I'm going to, buy a call option or revisit ownership in case of upside. So, that grower could lock that in at 440, 450, let the market go down to 400, buy the call option at 400, buy a $400 strike or whatever it was in 410 or whatever it was for later months, and then ride that back up to that 475 level. Now I'm talking about perfection here because it's, we see the chart from 2014. It's not going to be perfect like this, but you could go and say, well, you know what? I'm going to sell this market. I have confidence that this market's going to decline into harvest. So I'm going to sell it now, and I'm going to try my best while I'm combining to buy this call option. And at least I've got a delivery contract. I've got a worst case scenario. I have a floor, and I'm going to set myself up for upside in 2025 and into the new year. Now, in 2014, this market rallied back to 475 before Christmas. So it happened pretty darn quick. And the wheat market went from 550 as a harvest low back up to 670. So how you could accomplish this is you could go to like a Bunge, a Cargill, a Viterra, maybe a G3 if you have a futures broker, with like RBC or those guys. You can go and make your sales now, put some targets out because we're still in weather markets. We're still seeing, prices fluctuate here, but maybe you set a target, it triggers. And then your next job is to go and combine. And during combining, try to find your harvest low. Try to figure out when your harvest low is. And if you, at that time, in September, You buy the call option, and maybe you buy it for March, or I prefer May or July. You buy some time there and give yourself some upside opportunity. So it's not all despair and dark forever here, folks. Like, what I'm saying is that, you can still get sold. If you feel undersold, you feel like you don't have your cash figured out yet, you need more cash, you got to sell something. Canola and wheat and soybeans and corn, these are markets that you can go and sell and then buy a call option and re-own that. Okay. Now, of course, you got to seek the advice of an expert. I'm just a Yahoo here with a podcast, doesn't know what he's talking about half the time. But you can kind of get more comfortable with your cash flow situation and then still have the knowledge knowing that you have upside. Now, let's say you sell it here. You're selling it here this summer at what's November canola trading at? Let's just pull a chart. Well, let's say, I think it was 626. You're selling, at 626, and you end up going and buying that call option in the fall. And maybe you spend $20 or $30 a ton on that call option, but the market just never recovers. It goes from 626 to 500, and it just doesn't do much of anything for a while into next year. Well, the good news is that you sold it at 626 or 625, whatever the number is. That's the good part. And yeah, you maybe gave up a little bit on the call option, but you didn't hold it to sell it for 500, or you didn't sit here and say, well, geez, now I need to do something. I'm forced into a sale. It was a good sale to make. And then you say, well, Ryan, what happens if I sell this now and yields come in lower than expected and this canola market wakes up way faster? Well, you can buy, if you sold the canola today that you're listening, you sold the canola, and then something fundamentally changed that was bullish, that in your core, you sat there and said, this is a game changer. This market's going. You don't have to wait to buy the call option. You could just buy the call option. You don't have to wait till the end of September. You can buy it. You have to buy it before you deliver on the contract, though, right? That's the key here. So if you're going to do this through a line company or a crusher, you have to have the position on. You have to have the call bought before you deliver. Okay. But there's nothing stopping you. So yeah, maybe you don't do it perfectly. Maybe the market rallies $20 a ton before you figure out that this is going to be a big bull story and that you need to re-own it. But hey, geez, what's $20 if it's going to rally 80 or 100 faster than you thought? And I'm going to guess you probably have some more crop to sell, and you probably have some 2025 crop to sell as well. You could do this on wheat. You can say, hey, I don't like $7 wheat, but I need cash. I need movement. You can sell it. Go and buy a call option off May or July of next year. Again, try to time your harvest low and re-own it at that time. Okay, so that's my strategy. Think about it. And my call to action here in eating your veggies later on is to phone your grain buyer and just have that conversation and say, hey, I need to generate cash. I know you might feel vulnerable phoning your grain buyer and saying, I need to generate money in October or whatever. But this is a business, folks. You don't have to feel vulnerable in that situation. You grow a commodity to sell, and you want to sell it for the best price you can get at a profit and make money. If you want to be honest with your grain buyer and say, hey, I need to generate cash in November. I'm undersold. I need a strategy here. What can we do? This is the one to talk to them about. This is the strategy to consider. And maybe they have alternative ones for you to look at, but this is something that you can have a conversation with. Again, Bunge, Cargill, Viterra, maybe a G3 will throw in the mix there as well. Have these conversations with them and say, yeah, I'm undersold. Like, what can I do here? Is this an idea? You don't have to wait. You don't have to stress about this all the way into harvest. You don't have to sell it down at 400 like they did in fall of 2014 just to re-own it at 400 and ride it up to 475. You can do it now. Try to time the low and buy it. And if something changes fundamentally, that's bullish, you can always buy the call option before that. Okay. I hope that makes sense. That's my strategy for right now. And yeah. All right, folks. Chuck Penner, without further delay here, let's get to Chuck. 30 minutes of absolute gold. So please hang in there and see all the wisdom that Chuck has to share with us. All right, folks, I have Chuck Penner with Leftfield Commodities joining me once again. Chuck's a regular on the What the Futures podcast. Chuck, it's been a little while. How's the summer going?
Well, it's as it is for everybody. Been a little toasty, and I enjoy the cool. And I cleaned out my air conditioner, took that all apart, the unit outside, took it all apart, cleaned it all out to make sure that was all working well. And so we're good to go.
Nice. My in-laws, we spent a few days at the in-laws, and they don't have air conditioning. By the end, They said they were going to buy one. But then it cooled down a little bit, so I think they're going to hold off.
Oh, ouch!
Yeah.
Ouch!
Yeah. So when I look at the rainfall maps, looking at Manitoba specifically, like there's been a lot of moisture across Manitoba. Is are things still looking pretty good in your backyard?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say so. It really does vary, though, and just like everywhere across the prairies, the crops that went in early are looking very good.
Yeah.
But there are some that went in later, as some canola fields and things like that are really struggling. So you can look on one side of the road and see a fabulous looking canola crop that's filled out nicely and all of that kind of stuff, and turn around and the other one is looking really awful. So depending which picture you want to put on X, you can make it look really bad or really good.
For sure.
Not that people would do that.
Never. I've never heard of that before. So before we talk about 2024 crops, so this episode is the first episode of the new crop year, right? It's going to go out on August 2nd. So this is it. We got to bring Happy New Year. We got to bring the energy, the excitement, the optimism. Yeah. That's what we got to do, Chuck. But before we get to that, do you have like a crop? I don't know if a marketing highlight from 2023 or something that stands out on the research side from last year's crop?
Well, I guess there are always some things that kind of stand out. Some of the things that we've seen have been a little bit. We've actually been able to watch them unfold and see that a number of months in advance before the some of those kind of things go on. So I'm just trying to think of where some of those things might happen. One of them has been, and it doesn't get a lot of play, I would say. I mean, one of the things that we saw was we've seen for like months and months and months that the mustard market was going to whatever. And so we kept warning our readers that, okay, this is something that's going to be happening, and hey, it's not going to happen. And lo and behold, we actually called it right. So, and the other ones, some of the other ones that we've been watching, with respect to, what's going on with European demand and things like that in the flax market, for example, we were able to see, okay, that was going to be we were going to get some trade, and that did show up right near the end of this marketing year.
Okay.
But we haven't seen a spike in prices, but flax prices haven't cratered either, like most other crops. It's kind of been holding pretty steady, actually. Yeah. And so a couple of those things, you pat yourself on the back, and then of course the ones that you called wrong, you just kind of conveniently forget and so on. So whatever. We try to be humble, and the market kind of forces you to be that way. So.
Oh, it humbles me. As soon as I get a little bit cocky or arrogant or something like that, it really brings me back down to earth pretty quick. So it does a good job of that. Yeah.
Well, and some of the worst things are just the government edicts that happen in Canada or in other countries. And you think about the Durham market this year, or the last year, and suddenly Turkey has gone from a net importer to an exporter of 1.5 million tons. Yeah. And that was all based on policy decisions, not right. And so that was, those ones kind of smack you around a little bit, and you go, geez, wish I would have known that, but didn't.
Yeah. Come on, you got to get plugged in with the government over there in Turkey.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Brush up on my Turkish, I know.
Yeah. So is there a crop that we know farmers are carrying over, barley, probably carrying over a little bit more canola than past years? That's what the numbers or the estimates kind of say. Is there any crop that should be carried over or should have been carried over in your opinion?
Yeah. Nobody really should be selling old crop, right? Like in the last couple of months, like just stay out of the market because we know that seasonally prices decline then.
Right.
But there are some bright spots for next year, and so canola is probably one of those. I mean, the volatility that we've seen in the last couple of weeks is like enough to give you whiplash, but it's but the longer term fundamentals in that. So we got the seasonal declines happening with a whole lot of amplitude, as they say in the Olympics, amplitude going on, but that's happening. But there are some good signs, for that kind of a market going into next year. It might require some patience and so on.
Yeah.
And even barley, you're mentioning barley. The Chinese demand for barley, if we can get that picked up a little bit, and some crops in other countries are dropping off, particularly Europe and so on. So there's some room for optimism there. Flax would be another one where I think we could see some real strength. But again, it may require some patience.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on a couple of those for sure. The canola side, like this not great thing here is what has the heat done with some of those later crops, and the canola crops, traditionally planted a bit later on most farms, and yield setback. But the bright spot is that carryover might drop next year, because I like the story on exports. I think export demand can pick up. You can correct me if I'm off base there.
No, I think you're right on.
Crush demand, continues to tick up as well. And we have some new capacity coming on board here, right? Like it's close or getting closer. So, maybe
the one thing that'll act as a bit of a cloud or whatever is the soy crop in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
So that's not helping. But we've seen cases where canola can pull away from the soy market to some degree.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly part of it. And the other scary thing, just as a bit of an aside in the soy market, is that I saw an estimate for the next Brazilian crop at 171 million tons. And this last year was 150, whatever, and change, or either side of 150. And that was a record. And now they're going to break that by 20 million tons. I mean, they haven't even planted it yet. But
I love the optimism. There we go.
Yikes. Those Brazilians, eh?
Yeah. Yield optimism. Nice. All right. Okay, cool. So let's turn it to the 2024 crop just a little bit more. You talked to a lot of folks across the prairies. Is there any area that kind of stands out for you right now as maybe a problem area, or a certain crop that might be in trouble here from a production side?
Yeah, I haven't strayed too far from southern Manitoba this year, but if I'm driving around and looking at fields, it's not going to help much anyway, because I don't know a whole lot about counting plants or heads or
that's like me,
or seeds or things like that. Yeah. But as you said, we talk to people across a good cross section of the prairies on a regular basis, and so we've been watching that. What gets me or strikes me is that is the huge difference in opinion from people. So you get somebody in the Rosetown, Kindersley area, and the lentils are all drowned out, and whatever, and all of those, and the root rot is rampant and all of that kind of stuff, and they aren't going to get a lentil crop. And then you talk to other people a little bit further east of there, and you go, wow, okay, those are looking really good. And then in Alberta, same thing. It's depending who you talk to, you get very different, and where they are. It's very local. It seems to be very localized. But no, I think the other theme is that we had these amazing expectations. We got this rain in spring, and early summer. We had these amazing expectations. And then you're just kind of watching those fade away. That's it. It's not like, I'm going to say this may sound dumb, but it's not like 2021 or even 23, where we kind of saw it gradually happening like this during the year, and you kind of braced yourself, and it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. This year it was, when you look at the crop ratings from Alberta Ag and Sask Ag, like they're way up there, at some cases at record levels. And then in the last 2 weeks of the reporting, it just kind of goes boom, like this. And so, you get those kind of, those high expectations, and then they just disappear, and it's got to be heartbreaking. I mean, I'm just writing about it. Of course it's heartbreaking if that's your livelihood, and you see that. So that's been the tricky part. And so trying to figure out yields, there's always guesswork going on, to shatter any illusions that there's always guesswork going on when you're trying to figure out yields. This year is more guessy than usual, I would say.
Yeah.
And so you got to hold those estimates kind of lightly and say, well, it could be this, this way and this way. In terms of which crops I think have been hit the hardest, of course, the ones in the southern Saskatchewan, particularly. Durham, I think. And I saw chickpea ratings just really drop off really hard too. Mustard might be able to hang on a little bit, but still, those ones that are centered down there, I think, have been hit the hardest. So yeah, it kind of, those people have taken the brunt of it, I think.
Yeah. And going back to, the optimism at the start and all the rains that we had at the start for many, and it wasn't all good because there was too much at times, right? But yeah, we had a chance to just have the cherry on top this year, just maybe some record-setting yields for some growers, new highs that they had not established before. And then, some areas still, I think the cherry's been kind of removed just about everywhere. The Peace region, some of the Peace region might be the exception. But for some, they still have the sprinkles, on top. And others are just trying to get the cake, right now. Yeah. Just the cake because, and hopefully get a shower here to finish filling or to fill what's there. So,
well, yeah. And I probably shouldn't feel sorry for one of my competitors in this business. But a certain analyst at Ag in Motion Days made these projections that we'd be seeing record crops.
Yeah.
And boy, if there's just a kiss of death, and I can't fault him for that either, because he did drive through, like it was, he drove through the prairies and he saw it for himself, but it was just as that was turning. And then of course, then the story comes out maybe 5 days later or something like that, when it really has started to turn. And then he looks, like he's out of touch. But at that moment, I think he was onto something, or it could have been, if you had got a shower rolling through a good chunk of the prairies, another inch at that point. Yeah, I would say I would have agreed with him then. Yeah.
Well, I drove from Edmonton. I parked the camper just kind of southwest of Saskatoon. So I drove through, ended up going through like Irma, and then went down to Provost and down through Wilkie in that way. And then I spent the next week north of that, and then took Highway 16 back. Well, if in my bubble, I was like, wow, these crops look great, right? Because everything I saw looked pretty darn good. But, that's just a small piece of what's grown across the prairies, a very small piece. And,
well, you did a fair amount of driving, but there's simply no way that somebody can drive around and inspect enough fields.
Yep.
That's why I say there's always a certain amount of guesswork going on in it. And, over the years, you kind of learn to, adjust for those kind of things or get a bit of a feel for it. But even then, you're still guessing.
Well, and now, so our buyers, there's lots of buyers that listen to the show. So I'm going to pick on them a little bit here, but they're so locked down. The messaging from them is big crop, rail issue, movement issue. And so that you got that panic across the prairies, or that tension where farmers are like, well, geez, like, yeah, it was there, but it's not really there anymore. But yet the buyers, they're not changing their tune yet. They want to be proved. Yeah.
I always tell people, I said, their job is to buy it as low as possible, and the farmer's job is to sell it as high as possible. That's just the game that's played, right?
Yeah. And this year, I told farmers in the last episode, I'm like, it's now your turn to sell sell yourself back to the grain buyer, because the grain buyer was phoning you for 3 years trying to buy grain, and you were like, nope, not today. It's going higher. Well, now you got to turn it around a little bit and, maybe bring them a coffee or say nice things to them and sell yourself a little bit. So,
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to try. I'll let you know how it goes on the farm.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So what about from, we've got lower prices here. Is there anything on the demand side that is exciting for us to watch for? Or is there anything a little bit scary on the demand side moving forward?
Yes. Yeah. The answer is yes.
Good. Next question.
No, there are some signals that we will see some stronger demand, and we alluded to that earlier with canola. I think there's a chance that we might start shipping canola back into Europe again for their biodiesel industry. And even if we don't, Australia will be shipping more of their canola into there. So then maybe we can regain some markets like that we've kind of lost a little bit, Mexico and Japan and those kind of. China has always been pretty solid. So, some of those kind of markets. So no matter how you shuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic, like there's opportunities, I think, for us to do some more business, whether it's in Europe or it just gets shuffled to other places that way. So canola would be one of those. Again, I think any kind of crops where Russia was exporting into Europe, because now they have those tariffs on, right?
Right.
So any of those crops, we could see some stronger demand. And I've been, if people who've been listening to the show for a while know that I haven't been a big fan of mustard. But brown mustard might be one of those. Although, just a bit of a detail about that, we saw Europe importing a whole bunch of Russian mustard prior to July 1st. That's when the tariff went on.
Sure.
So they've kind of stocked up a fair amount.
Yeah.
So it might take time for that to happen. But flax would fit into there. Maybe a bit. I mean, Russia has been exporting durum to the EU as well, and so that's part of the situation there. So that may give a bit of an opportunity. Although there's a whole lot else going on in the durum market. Turkey will still be an exporter, although there's questions about whether they'll be as big as they were last year. And the crops in Russia and in Kazakhstan are looking pretty good. So the durum demand might be kind of soft again, which is unfortunate. Because you're already getting reduced yields, and if the demand isn't there either. Other ones, and we're seeing yellow pea prices dropping off lately and things like that. And part of that is seasonal. That's just what they do at this time of year. But I'm a little concerned about whether India will either reimpose tariffs or even if they don't, they might just not be buying as much. And even China might not be buying as much either. And they also both have access to Russian peas. So the pea market, the demand could be a little quieter there. And, I think for the wheat market, for the spring wheat market, I think it'll be steady. I think that one should be just, fairly steady. So that's a good thing.
Especially
it's been very strong this year.
If we can get some, fingers crossed, knock on wood here, some decent quality and some decent protein, we should be a little bit of a shining star out there like we have been in the past, but here's some good quality, high protein wheat to blend off with the other junk out there that the other guys are growing, right? So, yeah,
I mean, I'm not an agronomist, as I think I've repeated that numerous times. But I'm wondering whether this hot, dry conditions, whether that's come in enough time to help boost proteins. And I was talking to somebody from northern U.S., and they were saying in Montana, and he was saying that that they've got, earlier when the crop was looking good, they were putting a lot of nitrogen to it, and after the I forget, can't remember the term but you put it on after emergence and whatever. And so the nitrogen has gone onto the crop, and then down there too, it's gone hotter and drier. So we could be looking at some good proteins northern U.S. and Western Canada. And again, especially with the European crop looking just awful, way too wet, terrible quality there for their wheat crop and for their barley crop. So there's some opportunities there.
Just on that thread, I was chatting with David Lee out of Lethbridge earlier this week, and he said that the malt barley, was coming in with really high protein, so not making spec. So our master trade was going to be to take our good malt here, send it down, and then bring the feed back on the backhaul there. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to see, that higher protein coming up in the early malt.
Yeah, the other thing that we're a little bit worried about is on the barley and on the oats too, is whether you're going to get more thins and lighter weight stuff. So that wouldn't be good.
So going back to yellow peas for just a second here, one of the strategies that worked well the last number of years was to take your yellow peas and store them and capture some higher prices later on. To me, we have a shift. You've brought it up in past episodes, but we have a shift here in demand. It was, written about in the Western Producer again this last couple of weeks. If we're sitting here and looking at this change, how comfortable would you be, Chuck, to take your yellow peas and just store them into the winter for higher prices?
Well, I mean, there will be some sort of post-harvest recovery. But right now, when you look at the movement of peas that's been in place for a number of months now, been really, really quiet. And again, if India decides not to be buying, I think they're still sitting on a good chunk of those peas that they imported earlier.
Okay.
And Chinese inventories are still fairly high. So it will be a while. I think you need to be patient. And I'm not sure if it's in the cards at all for us to get back to where prices were this last year. I think that would be that would be overly optimistic, to put it that way.
Well, and Russia, we're not concerned about Russian pea production either, right?
Well, their crop is, there's all kinds of estimates. They last year's crop was, if I remember right, 4.7 million tons and change. And then again, they had these high expectations early. And they were talking about over 5 million ton crop. And now it's, there's a big range of, how far it's dropped. So some are below 4 million tons. Some are closer to 4.5. One of the people that I chat with or I WhatsApp with from Russia has said, don't forget that peas are grown across a really wide area in Russia. So they're not all grown in those drought, the hot, dry south where the conditions have been the worst. So he said, don't understate the crop. He says it won't be fabulous, but it won't be too crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now on our farm, we grow some green peas. So, Dad messaged me and said, next time you have Chuck on, ask him if there's anything different in the green pea market that we need to watch for this fall.
Yeah. Well, we are going to have more of them.
Yep.
So that's, if your dad has some, then probably a few others do too. And so, that's been I guess a bit of the challenge, and there's more grown in the U.S. as well too.
Okay.
And so I think we're going to see some pretty decent movement right off the combine because these importers have been really short on supplies for months now, and now they'll be restocking, right? And so, but I think a good chunk of that will have been traded already. Okay. I think the opportunities to still sell at around around $14 or so.
Yeah.
In and around that ballpark. I think that's actually not too bad. But again, right now we're just in the midst of the market doing the seasonal decline.
Yeah.
It's how much we recover. The difficulty with green peas is, and I think you and I have talked about this before too, is that the global size of that market doesn't change a whole lot from year to year.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to overproduce for that finite market size. And like with yellow peas, if you produce way too much of them, the price just comes down, and then you have Pakistan buying more and Bangladesh buying more, and all of those kind of things. With green peas, it's harder to do that. So I would be a little more, I'd have a little itchier trigger finger on green pea sales than on yellows maybe.
All right, fair enough. Okay, now my last question I had for you today was just, and we talked about a whole bunch of different things, but is there any crop that heading into 2025 that you'd be most excited about, like from a price perspective or a margin perspective?
Well, I can just dig out my crystal ball and I think
I see it back there. It's on the shelf right behind you there.
It's like the from Lord of the Rings, those Palantir, ball. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Nice.
And even more so the books, but whatever. Where was I? I'm just trying to kill time. You're trying to divert the question. Actually,
pass.
No, I think we talked about some of the ones that have a bright spot. I think flax could be one of those. Let's see.
I like the flax. Yeah.
I mean, from some of the perspectives, I think canola does have some upside, but again, we talked about how soy is gonna.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough fall.
Kind of be the cloud on that kind of a market. It's, I don't know, at this point anyway, and maybe it's a cop out, but it's more steady as she goes and gradual gains.
Yeah.
I don't see really anything that's gonna rocket higher. And if I did, I probably wouldn't be saying anything to anybody either.
Yeah.
But
not yet.
Again, so those things can change. I mean, all of these, we got all of this stuff about South American crops and Southern Hemisphere crops and the Australian and the Argentine crop. Australia is getting rains and things like that. So, especially Western Australia. So their crop is limping along. Argentina, I think, is getting a little bit overlooked with their winter crops.
They're in a little bit of trouble, I think. Hey,
it's dry down. It looks really dry. I was just looking at a map yesterday, and it's getting really dry down there. So, maybe that could light a bit of a fire under some of these as well too, if that continues. I mean, it's their cooler part of the year.
Yep.
So dry conditions aren't as much of an issue then. But that's
okay. Okay. Cool. Well, Chuck, we covered a lot today. Any other final thoughts or anything else come to mind?
No, just hoping we get a little bit of rain, but then it shuts off again.
Yeah.
If you're the doom and gloom person, it's going to be, okay, it's all dry, and then you get to harvest, and then it's just going to pour, and then it all goes it gets even worse. So I'm not going to be crossing my fingers, thoughts and prayers for all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think here as well, folks tuning in, like we have a harvest ahead of us that is just starting, and things can happen. We need to figure out what quality is. We need to see all this variability out there. What did that actually mean? Does it all pencil out to average or above or below? We'll see, right? We'll be smarter later on. And StatsCan's not going to confirm any of this until near Christmas. So it's going to be a while, right?
If I can just throw in one other word, is so they do their remote sensing things in estimates in August and in September.
Right.
And if they're looking at the vegetation, the greenness of it, and they did that, especially for the first one, they do that in July, they could overestimate the yields. I don't understand that fully, but the way that I think it works, they could be overestimating yields, at least in the August one, because it's based on July vegetation.
Right. All right. We'll watch for that. All right, Chuck. Thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your summer, and we'll catch up next month.
Sounds good, Ryan.
All right, folks. Just an absolute great segment there with Chuck Penner of Leftfield Commodities, one of the industry vets here in Western Canada. All right, we're getting towards the end of the show here. We've got the mailbag now, sponsored by Pioneer Seeds. Each and every month this summer, we're giving away an Igloo 3-gallon bucket cooler along with a breakaway Bluetooth speaker, and it sits right behind me here, behind my right shoulder. So we got one for July, one for the month of August, and we thank Pioneer for their support here. I'm actually going to be at a Pioneer Seeds tour this week as well, which is great. All right. So the question this week, and it's a little bit of a fun one. And I think I brought this up in past episodes, but the question is in regards to, can you lock in on wheat, hard red spring wheat, grade and protein spreads before delivery? Now, the answer here is a little bit of a loaded one, because there are companies out there. So, this episode is going out in early August. Protein and grade spreads for the new crop have not really been established yet. Okay. And so some companies like Patterson, they require you to dump a load of wheat on the contract to lock in the spread. So let's say, you have a couple of contracts, 2 contracts, you have 1 load of wheat, and you think that they're giving you a really good spread on protein. Maybe they've got a high protein premium. They call you up early September and say, hey, we've got a really good protein premium right now. Again, this is all hypothetical. You take your load of wheat and dump it on your contract. So you dump the load and say, put half a load on that contract, half a load on my second contract, and your spread would be locked in. You have to deliver something, though, to lock in the spread at Patterson, unless that's changed in the last 2 years, but I don't think it has. Some other companies out there will allow you to change. Let's say you're locked in a 213.5, and you're saying, well, I got a great wheat crop. I'm worried that I'm going to have low protein, setting up for my farm to have a low protein year. Instead of a 213.5, I'd like to lock in a number 212. You could actually pick up the phone and convert your contract only once. You can only do it once, but convert it to a number 212 protein or whatever you want. Now, spreads on grade, you're going to have, discounts from a 1 to a 2 and a 2 to a 3. I'm not sure if there's anything that stands out there. I saw on X today that some folks were thinking that spreads would be pretty wonky between a 1, 2, and a 3, be very wide. So you might sit here and say, well, geez, they're only discounting me 30 cents to a number 3. I'm going to lock in that 30 cents. I don't think it's going to get better than that. I'm going to take that and lock in a 313.5 or a 312. Like, you can play around with the scenarios. So right now, if someone's saying, hey, protein discounts 2 cents per tenth under 13.5 or 3 cents per tenth, those are pretty decent discounts. They can get a lot worse than that in a low protein year. And, if someone offered me a 2 cent per tenth discount, I'd lock that in as far down as I could, because the odds of that getting worse are slim. Is it going to go to a penny or even money? Right? I doubtful. So that's a pretty good discount. So you say, well, Ryan, actually, before I get to that, and you could do this with a variety of companies out there, not all of them, but we've done it with Cargill in the past. We've done it with Viterra. We've done it with Pioneer, where you just convert that contract. You convert that spread. And so if you want to get a little fancy, I call that like fancy grain marketing. But I've seen it pay dividends in the past. Like, it's hard to predict. It's hard to figure out, but I've seen farms gain 50, 60, 70 cents a bushel by just locking in spreads at the right time. And, on 50, 60, 70 bushels to the acre, pays for itself pretty darn quick. All right. Okay. So let's say you convert your contract to a number 312% protein. You decide that those discounts are as good as they're going to be, and you deliver a number 115. Well, they're not going to grade your wheat a number 312. It's a number 115 that you're bringing to them. These are pretty extreme cases. And if you've locked in a discount of 2 cents per tenth, and it goes to like 4 cents. Well, now you're going to get that upside of that 4 cents. You're going to gain a couple cents per tenth there. I hope you're following me on that. But if you lock in a really good spread and they get wider and you deliver something better, you gain that. You're going to get that back plus the gains. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. I think that was a great question. I know it's coming up a little bit on X here this week, and I appreciate you sending it in. And, if there's a company out there that you call, and I know you buyers are listening to this, but, if there's a company you call and they dig their heels in and say, well, we used to do that, but we don't do that anymore. That's fine. Just phone the neighboring company that will do it, right? And have a conversation with them. Most of us have wheat contracts at a couple different companies, which I believe is very wise for wheat marketing. Spread that out because you need to negotiate grade. You need to negotiate spread. So I always have my contract spread out a little bit to make sure that I don't have all my eggs in one basket. Because there's times, back in the day, I remember getting some really good premiums for high protein wheat. And I remember going to, as an advisor, we'd go to our farm clients and say, well, this company's paying a huge premium right now. You could actually buy out your contract over here and still gain, significant value. It was big numbers, well, geez, 8 years ago, something like that, 7-8 years ago. But this is a negotiation, folks. You're all farmers. You're great at negotiating. You love negotiating. And this is one of those fun ones you can negotiate. So if they don't want to play ball with you, just remember that for next time. And let them know that. Okay. All right. Our winner here, we're going to send a bucket and a breakaway speaker up to Riley Emerson. I believe Riley's up. I'm going to butcher where he's from. I think he's definitely from the Peace region. I can't remember the name of the town. So sorry, Riley, but I'm going to get your address here and we're going to send you up this bucket. Now, Riley asked about fertilizer. He said, Ryan, we need a fertilizer outlook. Darn it. Because do we buy right now? Do we buy summer fill, urea? My answer to that is no, you do not buy summer fill. And I know many of you have or have wanted to, and I get it, folks. I get it. You've done it 19 out of 20 years. It's been the right call 19 out of those 20 years. But this year, I don't know, folks, something stinks out there. To me, I don't have the fertilizer retails out there. They're not convincing me that I need to put my money out and buy. And in fact, now that yields have taken a bit of a setback here, I want to stay even a little bit more patient with my cash because, hey, I don't know what I'm looking at here for returns now for 2024. And I'll keep that money at home for now. I don't think there's an incentive there to summer buy. And again, folks, could be wrong, but I'm holding back. Okay. All right, folks. Pricing that stands out, I would just say the yellow pea bids are really starting to slide. I got a message from Tom a couple weeks ago. He asked a question about yellow peas. He said, Ryan, do I lock in $11.50 for my yellow peas? I said, Tom, absolutely lock it in. Targets aren't working. Lock in the $11.50. And his bids now are $10.75. And they're getting worse because harvest is starting. All right. So good job, Tom. All right. Eating your veggies, brought to you by the Lunchbox crew. These came in today. Pretty cool little lunch kit. We're going to try to get some swag into these lunch boxes and send them out to those in the crew. But of course, if eating your veggies is not quite enough, come join us at the Lunchbox crew where you can get your meat and potatoes as well. You can head to ryandenis.ca to check it out. And if you're like, Ryan, I can't get into it till November, what's up with that? It is the truth. But let us know you're interested, and at least you'll be first in, at that point. So a couple things here. Number one, I still like being a yellow pea seller. I don't like holding my yellow peas this year. And I know we're chasing this just a little bit, but if I could get high 10s or $11 for my yellow peas, I'm still making one more sale. One more. I'm also selling a little more green peas as well. Just a little bit more. I'm over half sold already, but I'd still be selling just a little bit more green peas. So that's number two. And number three, call your grain buyer, okay, or your futures broker, and just, ask them how to sell and to stay in the market. We talked about it at the start of the episode, at the beginning part. How do I participate in upside next spring, next summer? Have that conversation. Maybe you've never done those contracts before. Maybe you need to learn about them. Now is the time, folks. There's going to be a little bump in the market. Yeah, you want to take advantage of that. Let the market fall to harvest lows, and then you're off to the races buying your call options. Okay? So phone them. They're the experts. They know what they're talking about. They know a lot more than I do, and they'll help you out. So that's my 3 things here for eating your veggies this week. In closing, if you found the episode useful, please share it with a friend, neighbor, colleague in your local ag community. Spread the word, my friends. I appreciate it. Prices may change. We record this, most of it on Wednesday for a Friday release. So just remember, folks, things can change. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And if you want to be a guest or sponsor the show or want to connect, RyanDenis.ca, that is the spot. Have a great weekend, folks. I'm out.